had someone named Rich who wrote into us, and I wanted to be respectful, and I wanted to accept his feedback and his criticism here during our Sucky Ads segment. Rich says, "Hello, and thank you for the podcast. I've listened for a few months now, and some of the content really hits home, which I love. Unfortunately, this positive is heavily weighed down by a negative. In every episode, you say, advertisements suck. And while I understand your position, hearing this makes me have an uneasy feeling in my stomach. Why? Well, I grew up poor and chose advertising as a career. It's put food on my table and a roof over our heads. It's kept my kids from growing up the way I did, having to move out in the middle of the night, skipping rent before getting evicted. It's provided many great experiences and opportunities for my kids. I can keep going, but you get the point. All that said, while I appreciate your opinion, advertising does not suck. It's truly been a blessing. And if you continue to say this, I will have to stop listening. Thank you for taking the time to read this, Rich." Well, Rich, first off, you're going to have to stop listening. And that's okay. And here's my response to Rich. I just want to read this real quick, and I'd love to hear your comments about it. I said, "Hi, Rich. I totally understand. If it helps, advertisements suck is not a moral stance or a judgment. Advertisements suck is merely a preference. We, the Minimalists, personally dislike advertisements, and we don't want to clutter our podcast with them. I imagine if you repeatedly said, Kale Sucks on your podcast, and I worked in the kale industry, I would be turned off by that too. Perhaps TK, Ryan, and I can answer your specific question on episode 376 during the next recording session. So that's what we're doing right now. In the meantime, we answered a similar question on our previous episode 375. So without reprising that entire conversation, you all can go back to that. I will say, Rich, totally understand if you stop listening, wishing you the best. We do think advertisements suck. And it is not our moral stance. It's not, oh my God, you shouldn't be doing this, Rich. We simply dislike it.
Yeah.
And it's okay to dislike something.
Yeah, you know, advertisers, they take advantage of people, poor people. Poor people being some of those people they take advantage of,
and not every advertiser does that.
Of course, yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, advertisements do suck, but yes, I love how you said it's not a moral judgment. It's not a moral judgment. It's just the fact that I kind of look at this as an experiment. Can we do a podcast? Can we do everything that we do without ever taking $1 from advertising? And so far, it's worked great. You know. But yeah, it's yeah, Rich. It's not a moral judgment. Just please, if you get anything out of this, just know that we're not judging you morally. It's just something that we don't want to participate in.
Since I am on a mission to help equip as many people as I can with the conceptual tools that help them create wealth as wealth is defined by them, I want to begin by giving a shout out to Rich in creating wealth for your family, overcoming the poverty that characterized your youth, developing the skills that you could take out into the marketplace and solve problems for other people, then turning around and being able to create a lifestyle for your children and your family that you could only dream of as a child. Props to you. I hope more and more people can be able to follow your footsteps and do that. You sound like somebody that would make a great mentor to a lot of the types of students that I teach and I work with. So I love that more than anything else. The second thing I would say too is, sometimes I do wonder if certain terms or words or manner and modes of expression are just never going to work. So for instance, as we have talked about many times, we don't have to get into the weeds about it now. There is a technical sense in which I would consider myself to be a supporter of capitalism. But what I mean by that, consumer choice, customer accountability, freedom of competition, almost no critic of capitalism means that. they mean something like corporate greed, bureaucracy, getting in bed with big business, and all these other sorts of things that I also criticize. And so whenever I have conversations about free markets and economics, I give up on that word capitalism. I don't try to bend people to my understanding of the term. I just say, forget it. You can define that label however you want. I don't even want to use it. Let's talk about the ideas. And sometimes I do wonder that with advertising, because I know what is meant here, that we're not going to exchange our freedom, in order to take a paycheck from an advertiser. But I don't look at my TV and see a Tropicana commercial, or I don't look at a Nike ad and think, you guys are immoral for that. You guys are wrong for that. And, if Nike came to me and said, hey, can you do a commercial where you put on your shoes? And if I like the shoe, maybe Nike's not the right fit for me. But I don't think advertising in that sense is wrong. And I don't think that what Rich does sucks. I don't think Rich's career sucks. But there's a very particular understanding that we have when we say that. And sometimes I do question whether or not it's possible to communicate that in a nuanced way that actually works. I think there's some room to question the attachment to the language here. But Rich, I understand where you're coming from, man. I totally do. And I understand exactly what is meant here in the use of that phrase. Yeah. I hope we can have your support. But at the end of the day, what I support more than anything else is each individual doing what's best for them. So I wish you nothing but love, and I hope you continue to create more wealth and inspire other people to do the same. I hate to lose you, though. Much love.
Did you enjoy this standalone Patreon highlight? If so, you can listen to full episodes of the Minimalist Private Podcast, available exclusively on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalists or click the link in the description. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free.